If possible, if Gloria, can you check to see if the live stream is working?
All right, I'll be right back.
Okay. All right, but I think I'm going to go ahead and begin because at least we are recording. So hello and welcome to the Solidarity Salon virtual version. My name is Lisa DeSiro. I'm a writer and a musician, and I founded the Solidarity Salon in 2018 as a platform for creative artists of various genres to gather and share their work. The series features women, people of color, immigrants, LGBTQ persons, and those who are differently abled. Previously, our events were held at community spaces in the Cambridge, Somerville, Boston area. But since that wasn't an option this year, here we are online. To all of the people tuning in, thank you for your presence and your support in these new circumstances. And if we encounter any technical issues, which we're already doing, please bear with us. My co-host this evening is poet and editor Gloria Mindock, and we're joined by 11 outstanding poets who will each read for about 8 minutes. Unfortunately, one of our participants, Enzo Salon Serin, had to cancel for this evening. Our first reader is Allison Adair. Allison's collection, The Clearing, was selected by Henry Cole for Milkweed's Max Rietvaux Poetry Prize. She's also received the Pushcart Prize, the Florida Review Editors Award, and the Orlando Prize. She teaches at Boston College and at Grub Street. Welcome to Allison. And you can unmute yourself.
Hello, and thank you to Lisa and to Gloria. And it's really exciting to be here reading with all these other poets, some of whom I've met in person, some of whom I have met virtually, and some of whom I am having the pleasure of meeting just tonight. So as Lisa said, I'm Allison Adair. My book, The Clearing, just came out from Milkweed in June. And as everyone knows, this has been quite a time to release a book. But I thought in the state, considering the state of confusion that a lot of writers are in right now, I thought I would begin with a poem that began as a state of confusion. I had a thought one day about honey, why honey is so delicious, especially as I was thinking, why is honey so delicious as a counterpoint to something that most people find very much not delicious, which is haggis. And so I started just musing on the fact that, you know, the way animals and creatures produce certain food can make us enamored of it or repulsed by it. And that's where I began. So I'll begin with this poem called Honey. Of the sheep's 4 stomachs, which would we jar, which stir into tea? Abomasum, omasum, reticulum, rumen. Amen. Cud does loop the gullet like prayer. And lettuce hem reticulum shares its name with the honeycomb's net. But for a throat flayed raw, who among us would slice the distended balloon, harvest its porridge the color of bloat, spoon it on a child's tongue? Tell me how honey's different. Even bees, crocus drunk, split their nectar, guttering most, flume-like, into the loose purse of a second stomach, sweet syrup reservoir. Once back at the hive, each bee regurgitates its swill into the rapture of a waiting mouth. Gut to gut, so nectar passes in chains, the fury of 20,000 wings boiling off all water. And what do we produce? What sap? Bees' profound necking falls beyond our French kiss, closer to the queer plunger of live birth. Yet, in the dim thrill of evening, we advance. Why does a body turn inside out like a sleeve at the soft shock of lips unsealing, letting us in and out like a canal's lock? To those I have kissed on granite stairs and idling trains, under a roof cut out to frame the sky, What passed between us? How did it harden? Whom does it nourish now? And on the subject of lost love, I have another poem I'll read. So interested as most poets are in concrete imagery and in hopefully fresh and interesting imagery. And I find myself like unnaturally afraid of abstractions. So I thought I would paint myself into a corner a little bit with this next poem where I addressed head on two abstractions that really fascinate me, and that is imagination and memory. So I imagined imagination and memory kind of like Emily Dickinson does, imagine and memory being companions of sort. If imagination and memory met unexpectedly one last time, it would be this moment, the dark, slow mess of one body unpiling toward another in sleep, the longing of two waves reeling in queasy parallel. Mostly, it's like you never rested here, this body, your head never heavy as sorrow, as troubled bone, never turned in my palms like an artifact, gently undisguised. I shouldn't remember you as the trim boat you never were, this place as a storm. There are errands now, children. On the second floor of the world, a tepid bath fills. Some people will bear any anchor through the endless flaying tide. Our ocean unraveled quickly into salt. But listen for a second, as we used to. Do you hear it holding us there, scraping against the old undertow? Minerals under motion, rock inside swell. No, shell, just shell, dry littering the rack line. So I think I'll read, I think I have time. I think I'll just read one more poem. I think I have time for just one more. I'm really fascinated by like YouTube videos, which is convenient that I use them as a source of inspiration since we're all stuck inside. So I often begin writing at like 12:30 a.m. And obviously I can't go out and get source material at that hour, but when I'm writing and I'm trying to get the exact sound of like a bat's squeal, or like a bat when there are a lot of deciduous trees versus like a bat when there are conifers and things like that, I'll listen again and again to YouTube videos as these source materials. So anyhow, during one of my evening travels, I came across a video that some of you might have seen of two bears fighting in Rockaway, New Jersey. Not far Rockaway, but Rockaway, New Jersey. And it was just this suburban street, garage day. There were trash cans out front kind of rolling in the street and cars parked and people idly driving by. And this video went on and on for, I think, like 10 minutes, 15 minutes or something like that. And these two enormous, what looked to me like black bears, but I don't know, these two enormous bears were fighting each other up on someone's front lawn and then down the stairs and over the trash cans, and cars would drive by and kind of brake and then keep going and so on and so forth. And something about it struck me, that permeable border between what we think of as like a civilization and the wildness of nature. So that was the origin of this. And I would say probably better even than listening to the poem is checking out the video, which is still up on YouTube. This is called, appropriately, Bear Fight in Rockaway. Up till now, it's been a story about ivy pulling down arches, pipe cleaners shifting to dust in the attic sun. We've stopped worrying so much about worrying. Lights on a dimmer. Then, suddenly, bears. At the mailbox, at the door. We hear them first, their strange digital mooing, their pendulous throats. They shuttle dark sounds back into our range, past the wood gates we've built or let stand, through storm screens coated in rubber. Their blunt heft shimmers under swipes of claw, fur unspooling like a reluctant accordion. And we are glad to see them, old friends. The torque of their patient combat, even here, even as a child blows soap bubbles through a grooved ring. even as bathwater cools around her chest. The way the bears' bodies linger before they strike, mouths open, slack. We remember something of that. From before all the fences, the stairs and the cars, from a similar injury or kiss. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison. That was wonderful. Next we have Anna Warrock. Her latest book is From the Other Room, which won the Slate Roof Press Chapbook Award. Her work is anthologized in Kiss Me Goodnight, which was a Minnesota Book Award finalist. Her poems have been choreographed, set to music, and inscribed in a Boston area subway station. And next we will have Anna.
Thank you, Lisa. And thank you to Lisa and to Gloria for setting up this virtual salon, and to everyone reading tonight. As we know, every voice is needed now. So this is a suite of 4 poems that I put together for tonight's reading. It's a bit more somber. And the first is a look at our environmental crisis. I'm just gonna switch, there we go, all right. Others will be young. Repeating calls of flight-weary, rangeless birds, insects diswinged, multisexual frogs, brown and white bears mixed into ones that can swim but cannot haul out to live. To hear the broom sweep up debris and bone. Abandoned changes clang their final bells again. Choice? A straight, not straight, hemmed in by fire. We will be old when the elephants disappear. So there's a disconnect in the world. I think we feel it pretty strongly now, but perhaps it's always been there. And perhaps part of our struggle is to find a place of connection. But we first have to look at the disconnect. The world turns on chipped cups and broken platters. The meaning of a word, solace, sunlight, yes, every day, and darkness at night. Birds singing in their decline. Automobile living rooms, take-out coffee cup, smartphone. We skim over the ground, the sky filled with lines. Oh, come on, someone says, meaning hurry up, or I don't believe you. Empty chairs, so a body knows where to sit. Carpets wrap a dead refugee. Clocks tell time or don't. No 2 clocks alike, except in digital superlight. Our devices, definition 2, a plan, a scheme, or a trick with a particular aim. Where are the mechanical bodies buried? An 8-year-old, bent over the sidewalk with chalk, draws circles with eggs inside and rainbows that the rain washes away. He moves on to loppy hopscotch, jumps out to 48 squares, 99, 114, and then, says Ronan, I'm going to make one to infinity. He holds that word close. Everything, an instruction on how to live. We light living room candles to the dying. My hands, veined and thin. I split apart on Tuesday and have not been the same since. So part of this putting back together is actually grieving and acceptance. Erosion. How the piece of driftwood, very small, oval, like a bird, patterned by tree rings, looked like it had wings. But here, dried on the kitchen windowsill, its threads edge into cake layers, measures broken up, slats separate. And isn't it obvious now, this tiny shape burned before it floated to the beach? Brought to the house, a brown knot became a bird, made into a not bird by dry house air, fallen back to wood only, a piece of something once whole. Isn't grief like that? The way when you pick it up, it's one thing, a bird that makes a nest in you and hatches a day that changes the shape of what is put into it. Even small mementos crack, then absence that flies on and on to what horizon out of sight. Despite keeping the pillowcase he smelled like, later, just cleaning house, it flies into the washing machine. And the last poem is a dream, a slightly different bear than Allison's bears. This is a dream bear. Bear. The bear came into the room. The bear came in. I was sleeping, dreamed of cold woods, the taiga, spring, a place of endless no place, nowhere, full of trees, melt that woke me. A bear might come through the firs while still I sleep. Smell silver pots of rain emptying, rot in branch and stump raked open, ants bitter scatter, river water descending, stony ice broken, leap by leap, fish ascend to die. Close, greasy fur brushes my face. I cannot sleep within my sleep. To save myself, I turn into the pelt. Its lightless indifference. Water, roar. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Yeah, clap. Okay. Next we have Cindy Veatch. Cindy Veatch is the author of Her Kind from Covent Carey Press, which is forthcoming in 2021. Gloved Against Blood, which was named a finalist for the Patterson Poetry Prize and a must-read by the Massachusetts Center for the Book, and a chapbook, Innocence, from Nix's Mate. Cindy is co-poetry editor of Mom Egg Review. Welcome, Cindy.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Just want to thank Lisa for organizing the first ever virtual Solidarity Salon. So happy to be here with everybody. So because it's October, which is the month that the town of Salem, Massachusetts loses its mind over Halloween and especially witches, I'm going to read from my chapbook Innocence tonight, which pays tribute to the 20 victims of the Salem witch trials, and most of whom were convicted based on spectral evidence. Spectral evidence. Because she said she saw, and therefore these pinholes in her skin, on one arm to be exact, look how they crisscross, make a doily of the flesh. And because she said she saw you, not you, take a small pin from your pocket, a straight pin with a flat head. And because she said it was, therefore you, therefore not a dream, puncturing each pore, you in the flesh, not flesh, with a common pin. Elizabeth Howe. I had to be my husband's eyes, the light that could not reach them, leading him about by the hand, tilling the land my father gave me, running the house. And for this, they would not let me come into the church of Ipswich. And for this, they said I'd bewitched horses, cows, sows, and was the cause of sorrows that killed the Pearlie's little Hannah. No, never in all my life. I saw I had to be the husband, eyes, mouth, muscle, and took the lead and hanged for it. Rebecca Nurse. At first the jury returned not guilty, to which the judge said, retire and reconsider the not. After all, she had not answered the question she had not heard, guilty of being hard of hearing, maybe mouthing what? Guilty of having a temper, arguing with neighbors. Guilty too of piety, 39 attesting to her deep devotion. Still, the afflicted swore it was her apparition that did the pinchings and prickings of their flesh. And in court, when she raised her arms, the afflicted raised their arms. And when she inclined her head, the afflicted inclined their heads. Okay, two more. John Willard. John Willard married Margaret Wilkins, third generation Salem village, the first in her family to marry an outsider, which made his in-laws wary. She was third generation Salem village. He bought 500 acres and sold them off, which made his in-laws angry. He spoke out against the afflicted girls, bought 500 acres and sold them off, refused to round up the accused, condemn the afflicted girls, hang them, they are all witches. Refused to round up the accused, condemned Anne, Mercy, Susan, Abigail, hang them, they are all witches. When Margaret's cousin fell ill and died, Anne, Mercy, Susan, Abigail said they saw the apparition of John Willard before Margaret's cousin fell ill and died. He was 37. No one came to his defense. They swore they saw the apparition of John Willard. She was the first in her family to marry an outsider. He was 37. No one came to his defense. John Willard married Margaret Wilkins. And the last one, Mary Eastie. They said she hurt them and brought them the book, and then they fell into fits. When Mary's hands are clenched together, they point, cry out, look. Mercy Lewis's hands are clenched. When Mary stands with her head bowed, put up her head, for while her head is bowed, the necks of these are broken. She petitions twice, first for a fair trial. Judge, please be of counsel to us. Again, already condemned, she begs, Your Honor, please examine these afflicted persons strictly and keep them apart. This wife, mother, sister, her appointed time set, certain, pleads not for her own life, but that instead no more innocent blood may be shed. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Thanks so much. Next up, we have Deborah Schwartz. Okay. Deborah Schwartz is an assistant professor of English at Bunker Hill Community College. Her poetry collection, A Girl Could Disappear Like This, from Cattywampus Press, was a finalist also with Elixir Press, Carolina Wren Press, and Stillhouse Press. Welcome to Deborah.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you everyone so far for these really moving and important, gorgeous words. So lovely to be surrounded by poetry tonight. I'm going to read from a newish manuscript called My Refugee, a chorus and four voices. I'm going to read two poems from the opening section, written in the first person. This story is about a woman who has immigrated from El Salvador through Mexico with her child into the US. And the voices I won't be reading from are a first person Boston-based white American woman, quite like me, who houses the refugee, known as the refugee, and a child. And then there's also a section in the manuscript written from Mother Earth, and then another fourth section written from the global market. But I'm going to read these two poems from the perspective of a woman who immigrates with her daughter through El Salvador into Mexico into the US. And then if I have time, I'm keeping time of this, 7:31. Okay, if I have time, I might read one brand new poem, like right hot off the press. That's much more, I would say, frivolous. These poems, by the way, that I'm reading from the script, My Refugee, are, there's gravity to them, yeah. They're somber, as one of my other fellow poets, I think Anne, has said about her work. So My Crossing. At night, he makes his way across the bed of the truck. I pull my daughter into my chest, smell the sea salt in her hair, hum into her ear so she cannot hear, while he grunts and comes into the body of another woman. Chalk and foam, ash and a bone comb, cigarettes and an overripe apple. A tree has many reasons to give when we walk towards it with a machete. Golden coyote, black-backed coyote, side-striped coyote, howling in the milky hills. We feel the homing bones of your body. Red flower of sleep, wily through the cortex. Red sunset with the squat houses behind. Lupus gray, sterling gray. The tallest man in the pack is not the one to watch out for. In the morning, after the red sun conquers the sky, we sight hills through the sides of the canvas with squat houses nestled there. When clouds cover the sun and comet, when the sky is writing the word fire, we huddle under the canvas and the truck moves forward. One sun slant creeps through truck's canvas. My daughter and the other woman each holding one of my hands as we ride in the truck that is like a home. The woman's protruding stomach is a seed, though her mouth is as closed as a locked vault. After the truck, there is the walking through the amnesiac, milky white hills where the heat is a fire that appears like a face. When we reach the border, we are set free like nets tied to bombs. Let sleeping dogs lie. I don't know what to do with the hands that are mine. And the second poem from that first section of the manuscript, My Refugee, is called What I Tell My Daughter and Don't of What Was Left Behind. One shoe with a strap, a cabinet holding a small red bowl of salt, a brook with you, my daughter, and other girls mostly unclothed, but not naked, floating on your back, holding hands, one swimming towards the bank, away from the town, a big laugh, Rosa always an arm's length away, but her laugh and her shoes at the side of the bed, the ancestors whose bones are buried deep in the ground, the cayenne and chilies near the doorposts, the turquoise of the tiles to ward off the evil eye, the sweet cows with their eyelashes like spider webs, the spider webs and healing properties of water, the blue dart bush, the thorns of the bush, the balsam trees, the flor de izote, the dotted eggs of the pecking hens, the dried cacti, their eternal cycles of thinness, then yellow flowers. Finding the boy's body in the brook, his hands eaten by fish, the whirring of dropping bombs, the explosion leaving holes, one splattering a cow, the hunger at night so talkative, the quiet of sleep as a chaste dream, a red curtain, a gold ring, a throat, a rose of paper. The land, granite-packed hills, grassy knolls, silica, the harvesting and planting, rock beds in the earth, breaking our backs to farm rows of corn and yucca, other roots with names you must remember. The great mother who kept us, held us at times with unrelenting heat, her abundance of rain, dryness, cold so cold that her teeth shattered like the dead before they die. Always the brook, drying, then reemerging, producing her banked, weeping tree, the tree that loved everyone, no matter what was done to them, no matter what they did, the tree that still calls her name and maybe mine, mi hija. And let me quickly look at okay, I have time for one quick poem. I've been writing these poems very recently that are paying tribute to other poets and other great artists and other people in my lives, and just kind of flowing from the gratitude of being in these times on this earth with other people, not alone. So this one's to Lucille Clifton. It's really, really short. Thank you, Lucille Clifton. I once told you my father was my mother, a cloud of lineage tricking back into itself. My back is to a tree so that I disobey my father's instructions on how to be a girl, watch and wait as a big cat in the woods on a rock. There are ways to become a woman in this godful world, like becoming a tree, staying as a tree with a loving kindness breath, alveoli, sounds, lungs, breath, tree. There is a lullaby of the giant, how I came from my father's womb, grown fully through my own umbilical cord, cut by my own hands. Something is always changing in the sky. Impressive cloud passing, the question passes, the father tree, the mother of us all. I've forgotten my own being, born, but am now remembering it. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. Next, we have Eileen Cleary. And I am delighted to say that I finally got the Facebook live streaming to work. So I hope that for those of you tuning in, you were patient and didn't give up on us. I apologize to the first few readers, but we are recording. So we're gonna just keep on moving, and we're gonna share the video, and hopefully everyone will be on board with that. So Eileen Cleary is the author of Child Ward of the Commonwealth, which received an honorable mention for the Sheila Margaret Morton Book Prize, and also 2 AM with Keats, which is forthcoming from Nix's Mate Books. Eileen founded and edits the Lily Poetry Review and Lily Poetry Review Books, and she curates the Lily Poetry Salon. Welcome, Eileen.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you, Gloria, both of you, for making this salon possible. And I'm so happy to be here with these poets I admire so much. A calmer garden, perhaps, for Emily. My teenager's afraid that cars will crash into our car, or cars from our road will smash into her on our couch, where the throw pillow's silvered grasses will be watered with our tears. It'll happen like this. She's describing a text on panic. The picture window shatters, as does the ill-fated windshield, and she can only hope our Southern rescue isn't in the mix. I'm sorry, she'll say, I tried to stay for you. She might be unharmed, mull the odds. She'll decide this will happen again. When? Noon, night, make or model. My father's fears raised a fear tree. He who never missed a day of work, who paced the porch to wear his soul's bald, who met every city siren by striding the mile to the leather factory to prove that his work hadn't blazed. In the end, it was bulldozed, its acres sold to a grocery chain. Dad stood watch at the teardown. He lasted for 10 years more, leaving too early for Emily. I sometimes want her to gather at the hem of 5 years old again. One second chance September where she'll see our neighbor's birch leaves as butterflies, but won't feel them drive through the walls of her chest. The leaves, after all, just leaves, and no transfer of their awful trembling. I've been writing some poems about the people, since COVID started, about the characters in Odysseus who might be missing Odysseus while he's in his own isolation. Penelope. Penelope watches as an oriole gathers threads for its bed whose design won't be exposed to wagtails or tree keepers nearby. Beyond her view, oarsmen row into a far-flung current, absent of the crumbling house, distant of the grapes and olive trees, a vessel constructed 11 summers ago after her nuptial bath, built with resilient silver furs encircling her wedding feast, its sails catching a promising wind like the expectant wife hanging baby clothes in the sun. Dear Telemachus, I want to vacuum back the words I wrote to ask you to forgive, to let the suitors live. In my legend, my dad shipwrecks in a bottle, so I know what it's like to squint into the horizon and think I see a father in the mist. The last time either of us touched our father's arms, we knew no words for arms, for touch, for leaving. I've read you from 100 chairs, relived 1,000 times your grieving. I'll do better. For the length of this letter, I won't preach. Leave the moralizing to the priests. While I grew, I learned to be meek, and you learned to avenge. Telemachus, how sick you must have been of goatish men, wattle-necked, ill-mannered, and unfenced. To hell with stupid pretense. This is to say, slay them all, so be it, you're incensed. Argos. He was lying neglected on the heaps of mule and cow dung, Homer. Flea-bitten beast in the mule yard, who soothes you since his leaving? Wild goats and deer roam unscarred since you've ceased your chase and guard Penelope in her grieving. Dear mutt forgotten in the yard, oh shaggy heart of rag-hard haggard day, are you believing you'll hunt deer again unscarred, though you sleep in cow's dung, a discard of age bones stiff and heaving? Through tick seasons in the mule yard, do you listen for him in the backyard? Will your master be retrieving you? He's the home you starred, the path to your heart a chart impassable since his leaving. The sun's burned years in the mule yard. How do you miss him as much? Listen as hard. And the last two poems are from my forthcoming collection, 2 a.m. with Keats, and their elegies for Lucy Brock Broido. Stories of your death for Lucy. It's a lie to say you died in China, or that you survive in another state and commute to your tomb, that I hang willows from my gate, or that we celebrate with ginger cake. Another version is truer because it's a picture book about a mute cat and her long-haired mistress who keeps saying, Lucy will miss you, Nicholas. One I heard was that you were enchanted or relieved. That's blasphemy. They insist you'd wanted to stay young. Didn't hear you say you wished you'd persist. Didn't know that each time you told a friend, you had to tell yourself again. If I ever tell it, I'll mention there was ice cream. Not to sweeten your sickness, but rather to show your love for lists of savors to procure. Some easy to come by, some shaved with pickled fruit. That part isn't fact. In fact, I'm ill at ease if you can't spoon dessert with me in peace. You said, there is no detail that does not contain some hank of truth. This is the talk in the stark parlor where I forgive the gossips who, like me, want a stricken deer to lift itself from the road. And by that highway's ribbon of trees, there are no headlights, just sky glow as that doe roots her hooves into less terrible beauty. This last is the last. You tire of driving and we stop for tuna sandwiches. The air conditioner weeps and we bail its water. Near the end, you fix us sunshine toast. And I'll close with this very short poem. Before I let you go, briefly. That you were human, I celebrate with afternoon tea, though you died and I mistook your silence for taming. I can only tell you this. I've known the sky to pour flowers through the night that disappear in the sun's heat. Thank you.
Thank you, Eileen. It's wonderful, strong poem. Songs, such beautiful poems from everybody. Next we have Jenna Lee. Jenna is the author of 6 Rivers from NYQ Books and A History of the Cetacean American Diaspora from Indolent Books, which was an Elgin Awards 2nd place winner. Jenna was selected by Marilyn Nelson as winner of Poetry by the Sea's inaugural sonnet competition. She lives and works as a physician and educator in New York City. Welcome, Jenna.
Thank you so much, Lisa and Gloria, for this wonderful salon. It's been a really moving evening so far, and thank you everybody who's here and listening. So since I'm meeting so many of you for the first time tonight, I thought I would start by reading a this poem called How We Met. I want to confess everything about the cow behind the fence, at whose sight I blurted horse, so that I then had to pretend it was a horse I saw. What fibs we tell to gloss over the fact God's fly is always down. I looked the other way to spare him unease. That's how I met your blue eyes across the cocktail lounge. It's how I met everyone I've ever met. So I'm gonna read this sonnet. It's called Byerly's Fine Foods 24 Hours. It's about a grocery store near where I grew up in Minnesota, and it's about having parents who are refugees. It's a sonnet. For those of you who listen for meter, it's a sonnet in iambic hexameter. The aisles were carpeted in oyster gray with deep blue edging, and they sold a damn good wild rice soup. One service that they offered free of charge, they'd snap your headshot, print it on a card for you to keep inside your pocket. Then each time you came and whipped it out, they'd gift you with a cookie, chocolate chip. I'd wheedle mom to take me there on midday trips, feast on the face-sized gooey sweetness while she shopped. Like Easter eggs, the tidy gray-blue aisles were blipped with little plastic boxes stocked with recipes, ripe for plucking. First, leave the only home you know and grope across the ocean in a holy hole. Wash up someplace it's winter half the year, but where there's banks, fine stores, good schools. Then wait for your children's thanks. So I'm gonna read a poem that dates back about 3 years now, when I was living in just outside Hanover, New Hampshire. It's called Dispatch from Hanover, New Hampshire. 1. Mid-February's here. The president inaugurated 3 short weeks ago, just turned the EPA's reins over to a climate change denier, Salon laments. Today's high, 49 degrees. Ice sculptures across the Dartmouth Green are melting fast, limbs snapping off and shattering. Funny that when temps start rising, ice gets cloudy colored, as if it thinks, like some postmodern writers, opaqueness has the power to thwart extinction. Just yesterday, upon this chiseled griffin's outstretched right paw, there perched an owl of ice. 2. At 3 years old, I had a vivid nightmare. My mom was standing at her bedroom window, lifting the gauzy curtain with one hand so she could see. The lamp cast golden light where she lingered on that crisp midwinter evening, excitedly calling me to come and look. You won't believe this. Right here on our block, a big ice sculpture, a miracle, all gleaming beneath the Botton's porch lights. Rapt, she stared. But I was mad at her, some childish snit, and feigned I did not hear her, dragged my feet. When I relented, there was nothing there. So I know it's hard to stay hopeful sometimes, and next poem is about optimism. It's called Please Don't Tell Me How the Story Ends. It's also a Northern New England poem. A Vermont man, rural, lacerated his knee with a chainsaw doing tree work one summer. The wound festered, not angrily, but with a slow, simmering puzzlement. This lasted years. One day he fingered it, felt something hard inside, pulled out a shiny piece of glass. Another time, he pulled a blade of grass out of it, then a whole maple leaf. So perfect, it filled Canadian flag makers with envy. Started feeling mighty proud of himself, like King Arthur when he made that stone belch up a sword. Began pulling bigger and bigger things out of his knee. A dime, a dollar bill, a bandana, a quail's egg. And the quail hatched too. Got to calling himself the Wizard, made the circuit of local festivals, state fairs. You'd think the story ends someplace bad, a psych ward, an OR, or an early grave. A wimpled lady shoveling dirt on a corpse that died of 3 parts dilute, 1 part gangrene. But I think the times have just gotten to you. The pessimists opining on TV have dragged you down to their level. The Vermonter, he's still making the rounds, still finding 7-Eleven receipts, perfectly folded road maps, and poetry broadsheets tied with slim blue ribbons in his knee. Sometimes butterflies come foaming out, 5 or 6 at once, beating lavender wings. So I think I'll end with this sort of a dramatic monologue. It's called The Origami Master Breakfasts with His New Apprentice. This gentle wind, it'll blow away a dry napkin, but not a wet one. Still, my origami beasts aren't safe, must be moved off the window ledge. Observe this one right here. Neither crane nor cicada. Oh, none of that traditional stuff for me, not now. This century, this dynasty, this outlandishly wigged king, they call for new strategies, modern weaponry, and exotic species. This one I'm holding in my palms was modeled after a strange fish my lover saw from his ship sailing back from Australia, a wrinkled, warm-blooded codger. And no, I'm not talking of my lover now, you impertinent child. It looks shapeless to you, I know, scarcely recognizable as one of God's creatures. But as with sunlight, your eyes will grow used to its face in a blink or two, and then you'll be able to see nothing else, not even with your eyes shut. It's like that with me now. When my eyelids touch, I always smell the sea. I wish I'd been there with him the first time he saw this bizarre organism, its pudgy snout, dimpled chin, short arms, and stiff tapered tail. Though it dwarfed his largest horse by half, he wasn't scared, not for a second. You see, exotic doesn't always mean dangerous, and he said that to me too the night we met. It was at a tavern by the docks where the foreign merchant ships anchor. I'll teach you how to fold this one today, once the dishes are cleared. It's an easy one to start with. It will teach your hands confidence. You'll need that lesson in coming days, this century, this dynasty. When the dugong splashed him, he staggered. Brine clung to his nose hair, stinging. Then it lightly swam away. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenna. Those were great poems. Yeah, really. It's funny without applause. So next we have Jennifer Barber. Her poetry collections are Works on Paper from the Word Works, which won the 10th Gate Prize, Given Away from Core Press, and Rigging the Wind, also from Core Press. Jennifer was the 2017 recipient of the Isabella Gardner Fellowship from the MacDowell Colony. Welcome to Jennifer.
Thank you. I'm going to read 4 poems tonight, and also Lisa and Gloria, thank you for hosting tonight. The first poem is called From a Gazebo Looking Out. The morning sky is bright, but I've lit 3 candles on the table. The water shimmers near the dock. Windows on all 8 sides, ornamented with glass squares, yellow, amber, ruby, aqua, cobalt, violet, plum. The emerald turns the viburnum leaves a darker green. Anything can happen, Horace said. A falling tree can kill you. A heart can fail. I left my husband sleeping in the house, each breath working to get through. A hooded crow arrives with a thump on the gazebo roof. Wind pours silver across the lake. A call somewhere among the trees warns again. Anything. I listen to a lot of NPR, and sometimes you do hear amazing things. This is, I heard a report about a kind of bird called the club-winged manakin. And this is a poem in 2 parts. The second part makes reference to an ancient Akkadian poem about the goddess Inanna. And the poem is called Frequency and Pitch. In a piece on the radio about the club-winged mannequins in a cloud forest on the Andes slopes, the male makes a strange music. One feather has 7 ridges. The hard curved tip of another strikes the ridges like a spoon against a washboard, hitting each ridge twice, 14 times per shake. He shakes 100 times a second, 1,400 notes. The female thrills to the pulse. Darwin said the mannequins evolved solid bones to bear the rattling. Their flying suffered. Their music soared. After you leave the house, a gust among the trees reminds me of our quickened breath. Light rims the window by the bed. Thumbing through world poetry, I find the cycle of the goddess Inanna. I bathed for the shepherd Dumazi. I perfumed my sides with ointment. I coated my mouth with sweet-smelling amber. I painted my eyes with kohl. He shaped my loins with his fair hands. The shepherd Dumazi filled my lap with cream and milk. I think of the sliding boat our bodies made. This next poem was written after traveling in France, and it's called Mountain Outside Grenoble. What I remember most is a confusion of bells, sheep like woolen slip knots over the tufted grass. The din of dogs warned us off, as if we'd come to abscond with a lamb in our arms. Hundreds of feet below, the city lay in a haze of cars, buses, and heat. Where the trail went under trees, we heard the cuckoo's cries, contrapuntal, invisible. Let me pour it all again into the cup of my ear. The bells, the cuckoo's call and response. However far away, let me keep this place among my gathering flock. The last poem I'll read is a poem I wrote in March. It's a poem in 3 short parts, and I'll pause for a few seconds between each part. It's called On This Day. A light goes on in the house at the top of the hill behind the school. A car alarm at dawn, no thief in sight. A tree rubs a cloud between its fingers. What good is noticing such things when you're furious with me? To say nothing of the squirrel upside down, acrobatic on the trunk. Remnants of snow dissolve from the ground like a wrong idea. A splinter in the meat of my palm won't surface despite the probing needle. I got it running my hand along the railing as I climbed the attic stairs to sit and read at my desk. No book on the shelf spoke to me. Love wrecks us, doesn't it? Love throws us a life rope. Oak branches toss shade onto the curtain in the den. A driver takes a package from his truck. Angels, unlike cherubim, appear sometimes without their wings in the guise of a messenger. Not a vision of another world, a squinting toward what disappears. Cherubim carry the scroll of days. Angels say the words. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. Thank you. Okay, and next we have another Jennifer Martelli. Okay. Jennifer Martelli is the author of My Tarantella from Bordighera Press and the chapbook Afterbird from Graybook Press. She is the recipient of a Massachusetts Cultural Council grant in poetry. Jennifer is also the co-poetry editor for the Mom-Egg Review and co-curator of the IAWA Boston Reading Series. Welcome to Jennifer.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Can everybody hear me okay? Thank you so much, Lisa and Gloria, for this wonderful opportunity. It's so great to read with my friends. So I'm actually going to be reading off my computer because I'm in a hotel room in New York. So, and I am going to be reading a few poems from a manuscript I'm working on. It's about Geraldine Ferraro, who was the first woman nominated to the vice presidency by a major political party. Also during that time, which was 1984, the AIDS pandemic was raging and the Reagan administration wouldn't even say the word. So the more things change, the more they stay the same. Watching the clips of the Democratic National Convention, July 19, 1984. There she was, looking beautiful and looking female, Cokie Roberts. Pearls encircled Geraldine Ferraro like tiny moons around a Mother Earth, pearls created from mother of pearl, protective, that iridescent hard layer, the hard luminescent surface inside the hinged shell. Ferraro wore long strands long to her breastbone. Back then, I took fistfuls of tiny fake strung pearls, white, gold, gray, and I'd twist them like cables, wore them tight, wrung and torqued around my neck. As I watched the clips of the nomination of Geraldine Ferraro to the vice presidency of the United States, I look away out my east-facing window to the warm sun, warm finally this late in June. The doomed Japanese cherry tree split, then split again by lightning bolts, flowered for the first time this season, flowered pink and full of tiny leaves, so lush and tangled, I almost forget the thick branches we lost to the chainsaw. My name, she said, is Geraldine Ferraro. All the women reached their arms up to her, waved and reached as if they were offered open-handed a merciful pearl, a grace that one time, then snatched back and slapped shut. Why I began writing about vice presidential candidate Geraldine Ferraro. Behind Commonwealth Avenue, next to the old dome temple they turned into an observatory, the theater premiered Flashdance. After that, no one wore a sweatshirt without the neck hole torn to the shoulder knobs, like Jennifer Beals, who unhooked her bra, pulled it from the sleeve of that big shirt without ever breaking eye contact. Of course, she was a welder during the daytime. I took the one freshman in my dorm who looked like the steel mill owner up to my single room. What I mean is when my joints pop, when I'm like a maniac on the floor, ghosts come. I don't come to anything in quiet. Maybe it was there on the cold linoleum, maybe against the cinder block bricks. Maybe it was there in the towers with this stupid boy on top of me that I was hopeful I could conjure any body or thing I wanted. Someone smarter than I must know how many times I've orbited over 3 decades. Everything then is happening again. Back in the 80s, a rich man raped his first wife, and now I have to look at his face every day. Last night, I streamed Jennifer Beals on all my devices. How I love her every move. Scissoria. I found them deep in my junk drawer. 5-inch blades, cutting edge, inner blade, hollow. Stainless silver, sharp, still as a moth. The finger rest and the finger rings, wings pivoting on the steel heart of a fat screw. My friend once asked me, don't you think scissors kind of look like angels if you open them? Outside, the extra ashy Lenten light, crucifixions in the sky, flying things. Perhaps I'll cut and steal forsythia branches hanging over my backyard fence. Here are the roots of scissors, the leaves of a plant, the tooth of a comb, the cut and the strike. I've been home for weeks, slicing cotton into strips for masks. The terrible wind tries his breathing. I've been searching for loose weave cloth and shears. On the news, 5 men and a woman tried to predict the future, flitted around. At some point, time was severed, landed inside my back porch light. And 2 more. This next one is kind of a sonnet. Each line has 17 syllables. Sometimes when my stiff joints pop, women appear and want to talk to me. Oh, I'm sorry. There's also a quote by Geraldine Ferraro, and I'll do the international quote sign. No matter how carefully I move, these women want to use their tongues. We all know that the dead can't speak, but some can shake rice in a tin sieve. A poet told me the first tambourine was formed in Italian groves where women danced while cleaning rice, and later where women conjured ghosts. My father was an Italian man, so are my husband and my son. I was ashamed to tell them I swapped my father's name for my husband's, the vowels so round at the end, they slipped into my smooth white sockets. No matter how far back I searched, the names were father's names, thick as guns. If I owned a gun, it would have a cool, ghost white mother of pearl grip and an exposed silver tone barrel, silver backstrap, slide, and hammer. Its sound would sound more like air sucked out of small pink lungs or finger snaps. No matter how far back I traveled, Avellino, Salerno, Rome, all I found was a man's silver axe, his hammer, a boy, a blacksmith. No matter how I move now, women pop out of me. They sound like guns. And the last poem, the title is a quote from Larry Speaks, who was the deputy press secretary to Ronald Reagan in 1982. And it's taken from a press conference where they were joking about AIDS. I don't have it, do you? I remember a man who joked about death and then he died of Alzheimer's. My mother also died of Alzheimer's, and so there is no God. Deep into coronavirus's sway, I drove through the rain to my childhood home. That man joked for 3 years, joked about fairies and kissing, things he believed made a man less of a man, things he believed made a man a woman. My mother forgot everything but her fear, and so there is no justice. The new owners put a stone facade over part of the old house, tonal colors she would have liked, big blocks of fake rock. Lentivirus, long incubation. Lent, long days. Lent, it shall be returned. I stay awake until the first pearl light. The whole world has been canceled, and so there is no time. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Those strong poems. And next we have Julia Lisella. Where is Julia? There she is. Julia Lisella's books include Always, Terrain, and Love Song Hiroshima. Most recently, she co-edited the essay collection Modernist Women Writers and American Social Engagement. She teaches at Regis College and co-curates the IAWA reading series in Boston. Welcome, Julia.
Hi. I don't know if can you guys hear me? I'm on speaker view, but I don't see myself speaking, but that's okay. You guys do, right?
We have you pinned and you're in the center.
So it's so great to be, this is my second Solidarity Salon, my first one virtual. And I thank Lisa so much for continuing this great tradition. And thank you, Gloria, for co-hosting with Lisa. And I'm thrilled to be reading with so many people whose names I know, and not all of whose poetry I know, but some of it. I'm going to start with a poem I wrote back in March when I was trying to understand time in a new way. And I am also reading from my laptop, so hope this works out. Day begins. 5:40 a.m. and the light is yesterday's light. or rather today opens a replica of the day before, or the day has slipped, not yet begun, into the pocket of yesterday, seamless and quiet in its tucking in. The dog pushes the bedroom door ajar and like the day slips in, stretches rear up, head down, head up, rear down, patters and clicks to where my hand extends and receives the pat to his side, the lick of my palm across his back, and exits. I watch to see if something new has arrived. I realize it is time to breathe, to patch the day before yesterday into yesterday and that day into today, to make a plane, a simple level surface, a way toward day stream, a not beginning to begin, a clasping and a pinning down. Very hard to capture time when time was moving in such weird ways in the beginning of the pandemic. This poem's a little bit older from last year or the year before, but but I think it captures something about our own time right now. Thoughts about hunger on a morning walk. All life is like that, a pursuit to satiate hunger. Hunger for love, hunger for food, hunger for, and in pursuing it, not beauty, but violence, which eats that hunger, persistent as the ants in the cleave of sink, the wasps boring out of the hole in the ground, the dog whining for the company of some mammal nearby, the squirrel carrying half a bagel across the lawn and in a flash dropping it in pursuit of another catch, more life in which to pursue hunger, the lady in night shorts watering the lamppost and the curved brick edging while the grass beneath her slippers yearns. This is the way we trick ourselves, decorating the hunger with potted plants and plastic figurines. My text to my son, 200 miles away, have a good day, I love you, which is not a real greeting, but the hunger to lift him again in my arms as he once was, even my mother at 97, still feeding me her hunger, her worry, her thirst. Her arms nearly breakable in sleep, joints no longer connecting, elbow, knees, and toes, parrying, contemplating. These are just fillers like so much refuse on the shoreline of a city beach, evidence that we lived, broke open a beer, relished a drumstick or an apple, cores and bones washing up, reminding us of hunger. Now at the kitchen sink, the minuscule ants march ferociously into the sprayed raid, as if each still in life, still in pursuit, still hungry. This poem is called A Lesson from My Father about manure. He was a city boy, but he was also a farmer, a dairy farmer for a little bit in his young life. He said it had a sweet smell back on the farm, different from what was left in the streets of the city when he was a boy between fruit carts and hawkers, a stuck-in-your-throat sweetness, behind the stable, out in the field, past the haystacks, on the way to milk the cows at daybreak. It was part of the grass there, just the end of what had been a sweet beginning. Green grass wet in the morning, soak your boots wet. The manure did not have a bad smell, he insisted. Context was everything. Horse shit or cow shit on the farm was the kind of sweet that could make you remember, could be the evidence you needed that air could hold the knowledge of a good life lived. Really, shit did not have a bad smell unless it was someplace it did not belong. On the street, dragged into your house, or stuck in the lie of someone's terrible excuse. In those cases, manure was not the perfume of farm animals waking to sunbreak. It was a warning you'd woken in the wrong place, the wrong life. This poem is called Beginnings. When I press my fingertips together and make a tangerine-sized space that the light comes through, I see God there a little bit, a glowy something. I try to press deeper in past the flesh and bone. My breath pulls into it to hold it there, deeper, stiller. And I worry about dying then, about how my small cradle of energy, of light, of what I think is God, will bounce along quietly and suddenly into a new space. Who will remember how I cry all through Advent and cry for not remembering each other light, each cradle I have been shaped by? And just going to end with two older poems. I always feel like going back to my other books. I don't know, like old friends. This one is from Always. And the ceramic I mentioned is in the cover of my book, the little ceramic. Mothering at midlife. When you called me mommy, the world was a blue thing. Summer sky blue, that rich blue. No one could break through. But blue, too, as the blue of blown glass, fragile, but firm, iridescent. Now you are half girl, half woman. I'm mom or ma, ordinary, faded porcelain blue, like the ceramic melt of colonial dinnerware we dig for in the rubble of our New England backyard, broken off and diminished. Or I'm blue-ringed, blue-edged, like spotlight or headlight, and the world isn't waiting for me to pronounce what it is like. I'm just going to end with this one poem. This is from my book Terrain, and I don't know why this has been on my mind. It's really goes back to a miscarriage. The child would have been about 21 now. May 21st, 1999. Tomorrow would be the day of your birth. I haven't thought of you in many months. The moon has turned full and waned, and planets have emerged that surprised even the astronomers, all since you died. I don't believe in reincarnation as a rule, but today I imagine that the house cat here, who pressed her side against my door to open it, who meowed accusatorily at my stinginess, was you. Come back with your small heart the size of a pin. I couldn't even touch that cat, so sure that in its other life I'd done it harm, betrayed it, that my lungs had not filled full enough for two, or that the cells had not divided quickly to make room for you. I walked, my stride slow and ponderous today. I looked at everything that was small and seemed to be running from me. The chipmunks, the thrushes, the mountains hushed me. I looked at all that could not recede or be neglected. I felt the energy that rises out of long grass and asphalt, that comes late or early, that touches the trees and the dandelions, those ugly sisters with their unkind leaves, their worried thriving. I thought of all the things in this world that are not sure or beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, Julia. Beautiful poems. Okay, next we have Karen Friedland. Karen's book of poems, Places That Are Gone, was published last year by Nix's Mate, and she has a chapbook forthcoming this month, 2020 October, from Cervena Barber Press, called Tales from the Teacup Palace. And by day, Karen is a nonprofit grant writer. Welcome, Karen.
Thank you so much, Lisa and Gloria. And thank you to all the readers. You guys really amazed me tonight. Beautiful, beautiful words, really beautiful poems. So thank you, everybody, for being part of this. And thanks again, Lisa. I'm going to read a few poems. It's from a chapbook that's upcoming. I'm not actually sure if the date is October. It's probably going to be a little later, from Cervena Barber Press. So thank you, Gloria. I think we have dinner is just being delivered. So let me launch right into my poems, with dinner being delivered in the background. Morning doves make the best music. Can I tell you how happy I am with this humble little life, with the paths I walk every day with my dogs, and the trees I know like lovers that bend in the wind, having finally learned to fight nothing, to let the world wash through me and simply be suspended in the still blue sky of an ordinary day. The next poem is called Life as a Faded Photograph from the 1970s. Go wait for Daddy, our mother would say, on the front concrete steps, before the trees grew big, before the walkway turned into a tasteful slate. So we waited for Daddy in the hazy 1970s sunshine, in the hideously patterned clothing of the day. It was a ruse to get rid of us, as it turned out, but still we waited, zen-like, as if trapped in amber, for what might have been hours, only to reappear years later as a faded yellow and green photograph when a certain song comes on the radio. I hope you guys can hear me okay. I'm using my cell phone, so I'm not too sure. Good, thank you. The next poem is dedicated to my husband, who just got to take the delivery food from me, thank you. It's called Marks. It takes many years for fingerprints to form in odd places around the house, where your husband clutches at the newel post, say, on his way down the stairs. But marks suddenly appear one sunny day, above light switches and around doorknobs and frames. So you scrub the year's worth of dead skin and newspaper ink away, knowing all the while they're a talisman, a sign of us having been here in this house, of having lived at all. I look forward years from now to having the pleasure of scrubbing them away again. This next poem is called The Lost Song. It was about love, but I can't remember the lyrics, or the melody for that matter. It was on the radio briefly during a difficult time of love and death. It was wispy, ineffably lovely, not well known. Someday, if I really apply myself, I may find this lost song, and the mysteries of the universe will finally fall into place. This one is entitled Bad Tattoo. Don't talk to your tattooist about suicide while she's injecting jet black ink into the fragile, aging skin of your upper back. She will get distressed and drill too deep, leaving you with a permanent reminder, a painfully scarred tattoo that will wake you up some nights, making you wonder why you went this route, at this late date of trying to send a mostly hidden message to the world. Was it love? Was it fear? Was it middle-aged wanting? At any rate, you weren't expecting pain, but there you have it. This next one is a poem about my late dad, he passed away 5 years ago. And it's called Abject Bralessness. Poor Dad. The fad in Brooklyn that summer was young women wearing the flimsiest of tank tops and no bra, and I was one of them. Poor Dad had to pretend that I didn't have my small breasts on full display like a dessert tray in that silly orange tank top. Poor Dad, always bringing up the rear of the party, large camera bouncing jauntily on his chest as we strode through rough city neighborhoods on the edge of gentrification. Dad called it the ghetto, to my sister's abject horror, a big Midwestern smile always on his upturned face. Now that you're gone, Dad, I'm sorry for all that we did and didn't do, and I hope you knew that we loved you, despite our indignant mortification and abject bralessness. Let's see, I have two more. This one is a little bit of a dig. I hope no one takes it the wrong way. It's called The Poet. It doesn't apply to anything that we heard tonight. The Poet. The seriously published poet goes on just a little too long, and we collectively lose faith in her vaunted words, her 70s New York style ennui. She, in turn, feels us slipping away like the tide, less transfixed by the minute, by the torrent of honed words that had so recently cosseted us. So she picks up her tempo, and we rustle uncomfortably in our seats, craving our own worlds, craving release. And one more to go tonight is called Ridiculously Alive. I am thinking about the small places I inhabit and the tiny things I see every day, the very stones on the road. I am thinking that I will continue to reject that which insults my soul. This gets easier every year. I am turning my mind instead to everything that is now living. My husband on the couch, reading the paper, the dogs softly snoring beside us, the late summer crickets with their fading serenade. Everything I know dies, but this does not grieve me right now, because at this very moment, everything is so brilliantly, almost ridiculously alive. Thank you very much, everybody. Thanks again, Lisa.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you. It's good to have some humor as well. So, all right, and our final reader of this evening is Kevin Mcclellan. Kevin is the author of Hemispheres from Facsimile Editions, Ornithology from the Wordworks, Box, Tributary, and Round Trip. He won the 2015 Third Coast Poetry Prize and Javal Press's 2016 Oscar Wilde Award. Welcome to Kevin.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Gloria. And fellow readers. I will read from the manuscript And Other Words You, which I'm currently shopping. These poems are unified by form, a specific you or any you as the primary subject, which could also be a self-reflexive speaker, the dominant use of the disruptive slash as the primary source of punctuation, and the use of the hyphen, which either fragments words and disrupts enjambment, and or conjoins words that are not necessarily intended to be together. I'm telling you this because of the visually, the poems are meant more on the page than they are to be read aloud. So there is a visual component to them. There'll be no commentary between the poems when I read, and I'll start from the beginning of the manuscript and barely pause between the poems as if the poems are almost adjoined. A storm. Tired of, tired by, Your here fuse shortening, by no means explosive, nor in need of a voice condom. Meanwhile, elsewhere, you're not unlike a ballast. Dialectical. A wheel in you stopped turning. Death, a caught word. Your eyes, a window. Clouds wait for the first spring thunderstorm to clear the palate. Can't decide if you'll stay indoors. Seems premature to imagine parsley missing ground. Summer's either a portal or a container. Yes, clouds. A turning word caught in the wheel looks you in the eye. Sustain blue. The mirror. Look yourself in the eye. A dull light on inside. As if go ahead and are you alone both beg for forgiveness, each unwilling to meet halfway. Aluminum siding during gale force, some strips shimmying away from the facade. Others cling to wood, the shimmer insistent and the inability to denature light puts you at the window. A reflection, aware that interactions aren't clean, especially when tired or upset. Ask yourself why. You dissect language. Over here, do you always come here or what? Ascertain that always and or are infectious. Compromise the others. Own now. Realized, always on the same side of the room just before sitting. Therefore you migrate. Wonder if this inverse view will allow for something, anything else. Your head, a pink rosebud rotating 360 degrees. Your breathing, a leak in the silence. Also outside the increasing wind, when the chimes sound more, you are also more. Body. The baton, unnoticed or unseen, so a baton, with no handoff. You believe inadvertent, the art of being unaware until now. On tenterhooks, your skin. Interchange the words art and act, must not run, must climb water. Inverses, a pastoral. You see white caps dress the river undress the white caps. The birds reclaim here when it rains. A deranged oboe loudest, but you're put into motion from falling and stilled by the thought of crawling. You better understand metaphor, one sentimental song at a time. Your place in the world less. Rights. Not staying. You blank out amid the fake plants appearing alive in the hotel lobby. Alive ones fake. Decide to kill the wait time. Ghost walk on the other side of the road under the sun. Come upon a strip mall, a Marshall's, shop for something, anything. Though first in the household's aisle find two kneeling clerks and a blacked out girl. EMTs arrive as you wait to buy a gray knit, $9.99, then return to the hotel lobby. Here, strangers dressed to the nines wait for a shuttle. No, a yellow bus pulls up. You all board. A ride through affluent towns finally ends at a farm with a manicured hill. An old wedding arch. Sorry, I lost my page. Made with dried up tree and shrub parts. Man-made duck pond and some grazing black cows act as background. yet you more aware of the cloudless sky. Demarcate. When your opening sentence is a flutter, you apostrophe or hyphenate or gerund, ing to a finger, when receptivity, the appearance of a curtain ringing up. Yes, when desire is on the brink, your hand between and not close enough. Counting backwards. Your impatience for a response and an unwillingness to identify one remains. In other words, if you took delirium, no one would find you, a poor historian, alert like a mockingbird at nightfall. The incessant assorted notes, chatter, the form of waiting, and overexposure. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you so much. That was so interesting. I want to hear more. I want to hear more of everybody. Thank you all the participants so much for reading. I have so much gratitude for all of you, also for Gloria for co-hosting, for everyone out there virtually watching. It really means a lot that you're sharing poetry and community with us. I also wanted to encourage those who are able to make a donation to Black Lives Matter and or to other social justice organizations. I did put a link to Black Lives Matter in the Facebook event page. There will be another Solidarity Salon virtually this year in December 5th. So I hope that many of you will join us again then. And this was a great first experience despite a little technical difficulties. So I'm very glad that we got it all recorded for posterity. Thank you so much again to all the readers. And I think that's all for now. Everyone just please stay safe, stay well, keep reading poetry, keep standing in solidarity with one another together. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Gloria.
Thank you, Lisa. Gloria.
Gloria.
Thank you, Gloria.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
To hear you all.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.